Welcome to the world awaits.
Travel tales to inspire your wanderlust. Welcome back to the world awaits. How are you all? How's your week been, Kirsty?
I had a lovely weekend down at Philippine last week with my tribe, so it fills your soul when you go away with some old friends and when they all get along. Considering some of them didn't know each other. But, well, they did. They know each other. But you know how when you bring old friends together and they don't necessarily hook up outside of you. So it was really lovely. And it was such a beautiful spring weekend down there. We went on a hike and, oh my gosh, there were wallabies everywhere. I just never tire of seeing them. It was incredible. And you can take a look actually at the little wallabies and on my Insta, which is Kirsty Writes, Writes. And I've also been busy still writing about Cambodia, as well as all the latest luxury news for Carry On. So how about you, Belle? How's your week been?
It was insanely busy. So I was the first journo to walk through Melbourne's newest hotel. Well, actually, it's hotels because it's two hotels built side by side, right in the middle of Bourke Street Mall. So this is the 5-star, well, they don't like to say 5-star, but this is the upmarket Hotel Indigo Little Collins, and then the 4-starish Holiday Inn right beside each other. So they're part of the same company, IHG. And together it's about 450 rooms overlooking the mall or behind it, Little Collins Street. And Union Lane runs down the side and it's got that blockbuster Mecca right next door. Oh my goodness, so good, Kirsty. I went in there and I just about lost my mind and my wallet. Back in the hotel, though, I did test the menu by head chef Daryl Hand, who runs the kitchens for both hotels. Delicious, super cute chicken liver parfait. And the salmon was, he served up a salmon, yum, and the salmon was cured by gin from the local distiller Little Lon, which is actually in Melbourne CBD as well. So they're telling a really Melbourne story throughout. I did post a TikTok and also Instagram about it, and what polarized everyone was the bold blue that they've used as the feature color. It's a Mondrian blue. So think of a really strong primary blue, which is apparently inspired by Melbourne street signs. That's the signature color for indigo. So you can take a peek on my Instagram at global_salsa and tell me what you think about that blue.
Amazing. I'm actually staying at Hotel Indigo Little Collins for Carry On next month. And I'm going to source out that salmon cured by gin. Oh, maybe we were at the same time, Belle.
That'd be cool.
But you've had some other stuff going on this week, haven't you?
Yeah, right. So as we, the other thing that's been keeping me up at night is prep for a trip to Central Australia. And when we go to air, I'll actually be driving through the Red Centre. So we're starting in Alice Springs, working our way around to Kings Canyon and Uluru, and trying to find some of those more offbeat experiences and places to camp and stay. So I can't wait to tell you all about it here on the podcast. So I'm not going to say any more. I'm saving my powder, but also you'll see it on my socials.
Yeah, we actually have some really cool trips coming up. So make sure you're following us. We'll put them on the World Awaits Insta as well. But so make sure you follow us because you can see where we're going and then you'll know what we're about to talk about. So I'm also off to Tahiti next week to the first international yoga festival that the stunning island nation's ever held. And I'm going to be the only journalist there from Australia, so I'm told. So I'll be writing a little wellness story for Carry On as well as a feature for the New Zealand Herald. So yeah, you can follow me if you can stand watching these stunning shots that I'm bound to get, these tropical paradise images on Insta.
Not to mention you doing downward dog in front of them. Not jealous at all. Oh my God, I'm so stiff. I just think of nothing more blissful than doing a week of yoga. I have to look backwards to make myself remind myself because, I've been stuck in a bit of a rut just writing and not traveling. So I've got to look back at past travels. On the weekend, you might have caught my cover story on the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, which is about Tunisia. So if you need a desert hit to counteract all of those Tahitian seas, it's not exactly a destination that's top of mind. And that steers me into, I'm improving my segues now, Kirsty. That steers me into this week's conversation, which is about travel in lesser-known places. So this is an annual list that spotlights lesser-known places that are ready to welcome more travellers in 2026. So take a listen and see how many you've been to, or you can put them on your bucket list. So the list kicks off with Tuwai Island in Sierra Leone, where they recently launched a 10-year tourism strategy to attract international travellers and to recast the country as a leader in ecotourism. And at the heart of this is this island, which was inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site this year. So it's renowned for diverse populations of animals, and it's also part of the Gola Forest National Park.
Yeah, I love this list. And Intrepid really walks the talk when it comes to giving back and sustainable travel because they support so many projects, which you can find on their website. There's loads, far too many to list here, but this isn't sponsored content or anything, but they truly do an amazing job. And this list is just an example of the work that they do. So back to the list. And second was Tian Shan Mountain Range in Kyrgyzstan. And the stands are so well visited, but not this mountain range. So Intrepid says that this is long traversed by nomads, but little known by outsiders.
Yeah, absolutely. When you do visit, you tend to just skim through a couple of the cities. So a massive country waiting to be explored. So the third is Sierra Norte in Mexico, which is deep in the mountains of the Oaxaca and is said to be one of the most compelling examples of indigenous-led tourism in the world. This is a cooperative of 8 self-governing villages, which operates under this community-led model that shares profits equally, and it also limits visitor numbers.
That sounds so cool. I want to go there. Fourth is Ves Island in Croatia. I feel like Croatia's really having a moment. I'm going to Croatia actually in November. I cannot wait. I've never been. But yeah, it's also actually trying to steer visitors away from overcrowded destinations within the country. So this means places like this island are emerging as a bit of a serene sort of refuge. And the island has small-scale local experiences that it says celebrates the island's charm and slower pace of life.
Well, look, I think Croatia's been having a moment since Tom Cruise stayed there a couple of decades ago. And then Game of Thrones was filmed there, and it just went absolutely insane. Beautiful, but yeah, it's so heavily concentrated around Dubrovnik. Fifth on the list is a country close to my heart, and that is Turkey. And the region they're trying to promote there is southeastern Anatolia. So it's driven by a national push to showcase the region's cultural and culinary heritage. And I think that's the thing with Turkey. We just think it's all kebab and stuff like that. But this area, which is poised for a tourism revival, everybody talks about the food from here. So it's no secret to the locals. The cities of Diyarbakir and Mardin are still well off the beaten track for most foreign visitors because it borders Syria. And, as we always say, war's not good for tourism. But the area is absolutely riddled with UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And its key cities are deeply invested in attracting more visitors. And there's plenty more interesting places on the top 10, including Arunachal Pradesh in far northern India, probably overlooked in the shadow of neighbouring Bhutan, and also the 2026 European City of Culture, Oulu, in lovely, lovely Finland.
Yeah, and Romania, El Salvador, and the US also have places on the top 10. So we'll save those for you because you can then look at the link and work out and see where they all are and have a good read. This week, I'm chatting to Melissa Hoyer, one of Australia's most respected lifestyle commentators, journalists and editors, who's worked in the travel and lifestyle sector of the media industry for decades, and she's interviewed the likes of Drew Barrymore, Lady Gaga, Cate Blanchett and J.K. Rowling.
All right. Well, so besides some of the biggest names in the film and music industry, what made you want to chat with her? I mean, what's the travel hook?
So Melissa has travelled extensively and she got into the industry in the 90s when budgets were big. I remember that back in my early journo days in newsrooms, budgets were really big. And most of her biggest interviews with those really big names were the result of her being flown somewhere to meet them. So I wanted to have a chat with her about what some of her favourite places were that she went and also where the celebrities go for those of us that want to follow in their footsteps, which we all do. And she's also just an all-round wonderfully warm and really humble person and really personable, and I'm sure that you will feel that. So take a listen. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Thank you. I'm really happy. I'm excited about this, Kirsty, because it's a podcast that I listen to a lot. So I'm excited to delve into it with you.
Oh, it's so nice to have you on the World Awaits, and thank you for saying that. That's very kind. Give us a little background about how you came to work in the media industry.
Yeah. Okay. So, in a nutshell, when my first job, I was actually in public relations. So, in that role, and that was with the then Grace Brothers, which then turned into Maya. So it was a retail PR job. Obviously, in PR, I met a lot of editors. One of them being the fashion editor of the then Telegraph newspaper. She was going on a sort of a 6-month sabbatical, and I'd always wanted to get into journalism, into newspapers, and I'd studied and all that, but I had got this job in PR. I thought, well, it's great. It was a great job, but always in the back of my mind, it was actually media I wanted to get into. This lady who has unfortunately since passed away, she was going away. I got the sabbatical job, and then once she came back, they had loved what I was doing there in newspaper land, so I stayed at the Sunday and the Daily Telegraph, which were then sort of the two big newspapers in Sydney in the News Corp group. There was Fairfax and News Corp, so it was the Telegraph. There was News Corp, and obviously Sydney Morning Herald in Fairfax. So really, that was my start, and then from there. And I was doing fashion columns, lifestyle columns, interviewing celebrities. It just sort of steamrolled. And I think in a weird way, those were the days when you could kind of do that. I think now most people could have sort of got a lane. They've got a gig in a particular area, unless of course, you're a news journalist. But mine was very lifestyle, travel, fashion, beauty, celebrity driven. And really, since then, I then moved and I did stuff on Foxtel. I did a fashion show where I co-hosted with Hugh Jackman. And then I did a lot with Foxtel, and I did a lot of commentary with networks like the Nine Network and Channel 7. And I've done stuff on the ABC and Channel 10. I've done radio commentary. So it all kind of it sort of happened. And I think too, it was before obviously digital became the thing. So there, newspapers were our source of news. Digital obviously happened, around in my world, 2008, 2009. And I then actually left newspaper land and focused on the digital side of wanting to get into that world, because I just knew that was where media was going. And a lot of people sort of went, "Oh, why are you doing that? You've got this, solid, good, strong job in newspaper land." But I had been doing it for 20 years, and I sort of thought, no, I'm just going to do it and go freelance, and which I did. But then I got offered a job as the editor at large of the digital publication at News Corp, which is news.com.au. So that was very much a role that was it was lifestyle, it was beauty, it was travel, it was entertainment, it was a bit of everything. So I sort of was then using what I had sort of learnt in the digital land, because I had a couple of years in between, and I really embraced digital while still not forgetting sort of my roots of writing, because I still love writing for publications. So it is just, I mean, I think it's been good with timing, because I've had that sort of experience in heritage media, but of late, and it's been much, much, much more obviously about the digital space.
Yes, absolutely. Gosh, what a vast, incredible background. Let's talk about some of the places you've been. There are amazing places that you've been to interview celebrities.
Wow.
Have you traveled a lot to interview them, or have a lot of them come to you?
Well, actually, interestingly, there was a real period that was probably sort of the early 2000s to late 90s. God, sounds long ago, and the noughties. I mean, I went to Florence to interview Drew Barrymore for a movie she was doing. I went to London to interview J.K. Rowling. I went to. I was trying to think of other. I mean, I went to Japan to interview. There was a I have to think of who the celebrity was, but she was a face for SK2, which is a Japanese beauty brand. I went to New York to speak with Kate Blanchett, who was in a play at that stage. Plus, she was the face of, again, the Japanese brand SK2. I've interviewed Elle Macpherson in London. So I think that was when budgets were a little bit bigger, and that people that you would be flowing over to do sort of they're really junkets, I guess. So now they're probably not as big simply because we can Zoom. The amount of interviews we all see now on morning shows or news programs that have been done via Zoom because, as we all know, the technology is so good and it can look as though you are physically, talking to whoever in wherever. I was in I was in Vegas a couple of years ago to see the Kylie Minogue show, but I actually went just off my own steam because I'd actually been on a Oceania 2-day trip on one of their ships from Los Angeles to Mexico, and I got back to Los Angeles, and she was doing a couple of shows in Vegas, Kylie Minogue. So a friend of mine and we bought tickets, which were like ridiculously expensive, but we had like the best night ever seeing Kylie. We were like, literally front row on a little cabaret table, and there she was. We, spoke to her afterwards, and just those sort of things that have happened that often are sort of unexpected, but they've been, I've interviewed, everyone from like Hugh Jackman, Russell Crowe, Naomi Campbell, like a million. I mean, if anyone wanted to bother having a look at my LinkedIn, there's a million names. There's a million names there. So I've been very fortunate and interviewed some really, really fantastic people that are people that have inspired me. Not from I want to be an actor because I'm interviewing blah blah, but just the way they talk to you and the way they treat you, and it's so often the really, really big names who actually do talk to you so beautifully, and they don't talk down to you. But it's often like sort of the B and the C listers who think they're so clever. They're often the ones who are a-holes, to be honest.
From some of those trips that you've done, what was your favourite, and who are the actors? Can you name some that were just really lovely? Or actresses?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Drew Barrymore was phenomenal. Angelica Houston was phenomenal. Russell Crowe's always a great interview. Who else? Oh boy, who else have I done? Hugh Jackman. Like, what you see is what you get with him. Like, he's just perfection. From he gives you what you need, and with there's a lot of sort of provisos that some people want. They won't talk about this or they won't talk about that. Kate Blanchett, amazing. Nicole Kidman, another fantastic interview. Naomi Watts, all of that sort of, they're probably all slightly a bit older now, but I think, they have learnt as they've gone along as well that, they want to be nice as well. That they've probably gone as well and as far in their career because they are genuinely, they're creatives. They want to give what they know, and they've all been fantastic when I've spoken to them. So it's been, there hasn't really been one absolute sort of dickhead, which is sort of fortunate, isn't it?
That's very fortunate, particularly gay industry.
That's exactly, yeah. So really good, yeah. And also a lot of musicians too. People like sort of like Jimmy Barnes, Kate Sobrano. I had an interesting encounter with Lady Gaga quite a few years ago. She was in town doing like a big gig, but she did a very, very small gig in a little place off Oxford Street in Sydney called Nevermind. and there were only about 120 people there, and it was a secret squirrel gig that the organizer, a friend of mine who unfortunately passed away a few weeks ago, Stevie Lowe, he organized, and we had to go through the back way, and we had to be our name signed off, and she did this like private gig for us, and then afterwards we were chatting to her and talking to her, and I did ask her. I said, "Oh, do you mind if I?" Because I was there just as me, as opposed to Melissa Hoy, a journalist doing an interview. But I did ask her, "Oh, do you mind if I just ask you a few questions?" And she was so lovely. I asked her some lovely questions, and I got a beautiful story out of it that I think I put it on. That was to news.com.au. So it was, yeah, those sort of often those unexpected, and then often I've met sort of interesting people at those Melbourne Cup carnivals, like like crazy Paris Hilton and people like that they've often flown in to be sort of the guests. Naomi Campbell was one of those, but she kept everyone waiting for like 3 hours, so we all got over that. So she was a bit of a diva, let me tell you, but I think that's sort of common knowledge. So I think you sort of just. You often learn to live with people who have got sort of existing reputations.
Incredible. And so did any of them that you've interviewed, have they sort of talked to you about their favourite places where they've filmed or performed as a musician? Like, what are some of their I mean, there's a big thing at the moment, just sort of a segue we can either touch on now or a bit later, but this set jetting idea and White Lotus has really taken off as far as people wanting to follow in the footsteps of where places are filmed. But are there any places, I guess, more so about the people you interviewed, who they talked about sort of places they filmed that they just thought were. I remember I actually once interviewed Tom Cruise when he was in New Zealand, and he just adored Mount Taranaki because they were filming there, and talked a lot about his surfing and his love of surfing in New Zealand. So I wondered if there are any who specifically talked about certain places that you interviewed.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of sort of celebs who come to Australia for interviews, often as part of their sort of their interviewing sort of schedule here, they'll often be then set up to on sort of Hamilton Island or Hayman Island as for a week after they've done their stuff in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, da da da. But it's funny, there's quite a few that I've spoken to of late who have really wanted to go to New Zealand. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think, I mean, from a visual, I mean, it is the most spectacular. I mean, everything. I mean, there are so many places in all the world, whether you go to Puli or whether you go to an amazing, whether you go to Morocco or Marrakesh or the Cotswolds, everywhere there's beautiful elements. I mean, I've gone to lovely islands in Fiji. I've been to Vanuatu. I was in the Maldives just recently. Like, there's all of these places we mention, we go, oh, wow, wow, wow. But there is something about New Zealand that so many people that I have spoken to have often gone there. They've come and done their Australian sort of promotional thing, but they'll go over to New Zealand. It's sort of, and I think that's probably a lot to do with so much filming that that has been done in New Zealand. And it's so spectacular. I was in Queenstown about 7 years ago for a friend's wedding, and it was I think it was June or July, so it was cold. But she wore this extraordinary like feathered, and she's not sort of a fashionista, but she wore this. She's very tall, and she walked down, and she wore this like big feathered cape, and you'd think we were on the set of like some amazing, spectacular Peter Jackson movie. Like, it was just beautiful. But yeah, I'm really, New Zealand is something, and I think a lot of like Fijian islands as well. A lot of people are wanting to go there who have spent time doing their sort of promotional stuff here. Then they'll go whether it's Kokomo or Tokariki or Royal Davui. There's so many beautiful Fijian islands. So yeah, I think that kind of that's sort of, they want like a real holiday at the end of their time in Australia, whether they've been filming or whether they're here for a promotional thing. So there's certainly the places that I'm hearing that people are wanting to go to. if they've come to Australia and they've got a week to sort of have for a bit of R&R afterwards.
So for a local getaway, if you want to spot the celebs, you need to go to Hayman Island, Hamilton Island, or New Zealand.
Yeah. And a bit of Fiji in there as well.
And a bit of Fiji, of course.
Yeah.
And Fiji is obviously always a popular one, and also probably increasingly because of the incredible resorts that are opening now.
Yep. And so close. I mean, as in Australia. I mean, like, you're there in 4 hours. Like it's a very, you sort of often forget how close Fijian Islands are to Australia. So it's and I think a lot of people are looking at that too. That they don't want to spend a day getting to a resort holiday. They're happy to do 4, 5, 6 hours, but any longer, it's like, well, hang on. When I get there, I just want to relax. I don't want to spend sort of 24 hours getting to somewhere where I'm just going to sort of relax. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yes. Of all the places that you've been interviewing celebrities or musicians, which are obviously also celebrities, where is somewhere, if you had to pick one place as a complete standout and somewhere that you would recommend to people to go, where would it be?
Oi. Well, I mean, I was fortunate when, just before White Lotus Thailand came out, I went to the Anantara hotels that were used in White Lotus. I mean, there were 2 particular hotels that were used as well as so there's 4 seasons, but there were 2 of the Anantara. So I went on a media trip, and even though we didn't interview because the filming had already been done. But it was interesting because to actually go there and then come back and then we hadn't seen the show. The show then was on, I think, about 2 months after we'd been on our trip. Then to actually watch the show and spot all the areas that we had been to, I mean, that was really sort of quite special. And I can see the absolute sort of reason why people are they're sort of flocking back to Thailand because they want their own White Lotus experience. And also, I sort of had forgotten how beautiful sort of Thailand is. And I think we sort of think crazy Bangkok, da, 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 da. But then when you actually then go to the islands, it's just spectacular. Like really. Just like you can either do crazy and you can do nightclubs and all that, or you can just do sort of beautiful calm, which is really probably the one thing most people want to do when they go to Thailand now, and probably a bit of shopping and eat well. So it's good.
Yeah, lots of well-being there too.
Yeah, very much.
And so what are some of your other favourite sort of travel experiences that you've had?
Okay. Well, my father was Czech, so I've still got a small amount of family in Prague. So I've been to Prague a couple of times, which is always an interesting experience because most of his family, a few of them have passed on since, but they could only speak Czech. There was one who could speak Czech, German, and pretty bad English.
Mm-hmm.
My Czech was hopeless. My German was okay. So he would have to sort of, he would ask me a question kind of in English and broken German. I would sort of answer it in German, kind of broken English. Then he would then try to translate it to Czech in order to tell the family the question. So who knows what he actually ended up sort of answering some of these questions with, because it was this lovely sort of fusion of three sort of languages. But it was it's funny, even though you'd have these conversations, then you sort of think, I wonder if she's actually understanding my answer. But I think just in the way you would talk and also photos, just showing photos. I mean, that was sort of a story in itself. So I think we went okay, considering the complete lack of the Czech understanding of the language for my part. So yeah, so Prague, I love Prague. I mean, Puglia, I've got a friend who has a fantastic place there, a Masseria. It's called Masseria Trapana. He's an Australian-born friend, Rob Potter Sanders, who's got a fabulous place. Another great guy called Craig Markham, who works actually he works in London for the Ferndale group of hotels, which is like the Ham Yard and amazing hotels. He's just built a place just outside of Puglia. Colette Dinnigan is a friend of mine. She's got a place there. So I do love that sort of. I love the boot of Italy, or the heel of Italy, because that's obviously where Puglia is. Oh yeah, I've had like it's funny. I've got these sort of bucket lists that I have written down, and it's interesting. I've just said yes to a trip that I'm going to go on next May, but it's with a group of friends, so we're all paying for it, and it's to Marrakech and to Morocco, because I've never been, and I've always wanted to go, and this trip has sort of come up, and there's going to be 12 of us, and it's yeah, so that I'm so looking forward to that, because it's a place I've wanted to go to, but no, I'm a single person, and it's sort of hard sometimes to find like-minded people who you want to travel with, who also want to go at the same time, want to do it the same kind of way. You know, some people might have lots of money, some people may want to do it sort of a bit more budget-minded, but the way we're doing it is very sort of middle of the road. It's a good price, and we're paying, and it's a fantastic itinerary. So that's next May. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I already know like 4 people who are going on it. So that'll be fun. And there were, yeah, and I'd love to. I'd love to go. I'd love to do an amazing Ponarm trip to Antarctica. I'd love to do all that, but it's all relative, and it's all it's about the bank balance, and if someone can commission me. So it's all about that, as you know. Yeah.
So what would be, give me a couple of top tips for people who want to be doing what you're doing one day.
Yeah.
So who want to be traveling and also interviewing celebrities. What are a couple of top tips for people to get into that?
Okay. Well, I think, and it's probably a lot different now, because I started like when I did, and you've been working in the media for so long as well, not as long as me, because you're much younger than me.
I don't think so. But
Yeah, actually, yeah, let's say we're about it. Well, let's say we're about even. But you sort of you have to say. I think it was social media. I think the important thing and way to use social media, particularly if you're just starting off, is to really engage with people. Like a lot of people will like stuff. That's all good and well. But if you are wanting to get into that world of interviewing celebrities, or and if you're not some nutcase, DM the person, DM them. And do your research, work out who the management is, or the PR who is looking after that particular person, or that particular resort, or that particular beauty brand, or that particular fashion brand. And direct message them, because we all do look at our DMs. Obviously you're not going to DM Kylie or Gaga or someone and go, "Oh, hi, can I be work experience?" Because when they've got 30 million followers, it's a little bit different. But with marketing people and their PR people, direct message. You might only have 500 followers, but you have to start creating your own brand, and by creating your own brand, at least you're getting your name out there. Your name is then going to be. It might only be a little tiny trickle in that public relation person's life, but you're making the inroads into getting potentially known. Comment on accounts. Don't just like things. Actually comment and say, "Wow, well, Kirsty, that I love that story, or I love that podcast that you did about blah blah blah. I was particularly interested when you spoke to so and so about that amazing resort in Vietnam." So you look as though, or that you are genuinely interested and potentially interesting, because you are sounding as though you are interested in the subject matter, because you've taken the time to actually research and listen to, whether it's your podcast or a story someone's written, or read it, or gone through an entire magazine that someone's just put out. So, I think it's really interesting. I think social media, it can be used so much for good and for garnering really good contacts.
Yeah, that's really good advice. We are sadly running out of time. So I'm going to ask you the last question we ask all of our interviewees, which is, what's the most bizarre thing that's ever happened to you on your tours?
Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. This is bizarre. I was flying from London down to Madrid because I was actually about to walk part of the Camino Trail, and I'd been in. Actually, no, I'd been in London. I then went to Paris because a friend of mine, Shelley Sullivan, had just done this extraordinary big MCO Beauty, which is a beauty brand. She'd done this thing in the Place Vendôme, where she had all these people marching around, like amazing, amazing. I got a plane from Paris to Madrid because I was meeting a group in Madrid, and then we were going to walk the Camino. I'm on the plane. I get off the plane, and I had noticed a woman sitting next to me who looked like just a quintessential sort of gypsy, but like she was sort of like a great looking gypsy in a Stevie Nicks kind of way. Anyway, I got off the plane and I had my passport in my passport holder. Then I went to look for my wallet, and I could not find my wallet anywhere. And I thought, this is really weird. Then I realized as the plane had landed, she'd gone down to get her bags at her feet. And she spent quite a lot of time down there, which even I thought that was a bit weird because she just had to get her couple of bags, and they were quite chock-a-block. And my bag was at my feet, but I did say it was open, and my wallet was at the top because I'd actually bought like a drink or water on the trolley because it was just a cheap flight. So she and I'm not even going to say I'm not going to say I think she did it because I know she did it. She's obviously got my wallet, stolen my wallet, and put it into her bag. And so then I arrived in Madrid with nothing apart from my passport. And I just got out money. Because we were going to be walking the trail. I had oh my God, every credit card, everything. And I was about to start this this really sort of cathartic, wow, woe is me, Camino Trail. And I was on the phone all that night, cancelling credit cards, doing all this crap. And luckily, in a funny way, it was probably quite good that I did this, 8-day walk because it made me think life isn't that bad. But that's probably the most awful experience and probably the sort of the kookiest, craziest one that I've had. Apart from having a passport, my passport was water damaged and I was nearly not let into the USA, but I somehow got my way in. So, but I did actually write about it. But I wrote about that because it was like, passports. You forget how they are legal tender.
Yes.
You have to so look after your passport. So everyone, look after your passport.
What amazing advice. And I've absolutely loved talking with you. Thank you so much for being on The World Awakes.
I love it. I'd do it again anytime. We'll talk about more things next time, Kirsty. Thanks for having me.
We absolutely will.
Okay. Thank you.
I loved how she talked about the impact Thailand has had on her when she went to Koh Samui for a jet-setting experience and how it just transformed her view of a Thai getaway. So for more, follow Melissa on Instagram at Melissa Hoyer.
Our tip this week is about how to make your phone's data last longer.
Oh, it is the stuff of nightmares. You're stuck on the streets of Paris with a train strike and you're going to miss your time slot going up the Eiffel Tower, or you've lost your way on a self-drive trip in the US. You need an Uber, you need online maps, and your phone is out of data.
Yes, horror show. So between uploading selfies to socials, checking maps and ordering online, we are burning through our data when we travel. And eSIM provider Celeb gives us the stats on digital use, which is super handy because you can at least have some idea of how much data to buy when you land in a new country.
So they have done a quick approximation of what your data is, because you never know, do you? You think, how much data am I going to if I upload this photo? So here's a rough guide for you. An hour's video call uses up to 300 meg. Streaming music for 1 hour takes about half that, about 150 meg. And checking maps for 5 minutes burns 11 megabytes of data, whereas uploading the perfect photo, 16 meg. So all that adds up if you thought you needed to buy only 1 gig of data. Navigation apps and ride-sharing apps left open quietly guzzle the data in the background.
So how can you put the brakes on? Saley says, first up, either use a trusted Wi-Fi connection wherever you can. So while you're still in your hotel in the morning, which, yeah, that's what we do, just always make sure we click into the local Wi-Fi and load up all your socials and stuff while you're there. Or buy an eSIM with a solid amount of data on it. Also, do you really need to make a video call? Audio calls cost a lot less and use a lot less data and are a lot more reliable when you're on weak connections.
And other great tips include downloading maps, playlists, and TV shows before your trip. So do it at home. Part of that essential pre-trip preparation that I think we'll both be doing this week, Kirsty. And if you want to keep an eye on your use a data calculator to keep track so you don't run out. And make sure your mobile data is turned off as well so that it doesn't default back to your home data plan and burn a giant hole in your wallet.
Yeah. I mean, I do tend to, when I travel, just use the local Wi-Fi a lot whenever I can. But yeah, having an eSIM is definitely helpful, and we did that too when we were in Europe last year. So those stats are on Saley's website, which is saley.com, and we'll put a link in the show notes.
Next week, my guest is Rome-based opera singer Brianna Stillman. The Australian soprano is the force behind Operafinity, which is a charity that uses music to create connection, and her work in Kenya is absolutely inspirational.
And we'd love it if you followed us on socials. You'll find us at The World Awaits podcast on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. And please drop us a line too if you want to. We'd love to hear from you. hello@theworldawaits.au. Or you can drop us a little note on our socials. And if you are enjoying any of our episodes, please give us a rating and review. Thank you.
That's a wrap for The World Awaits this week. Click to subscribe anywhere you listen to your favourite pods.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.